we were waiting to do awards. The awards weren't moving as fast as we had hoped, and so we had to book it to the airport. Hey team, welcome to the Kick It with Katie podcast. I'm your host, Katie Koelliker, and welcome to this episode of me telling you guys about my crazy summer. And before I get into that, I just want to remind everybody to make sure that you like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, share the podcast, review the podcast. It definitely helps get the stories out there for other people to be able to find when they're trying to search soccer podcasts. And definitely share it. Find me on social media. I have a podcast Instagram page, Kick It with Katie Podcast, _ between all the words. And share anything. If there's a specific podcast episode that you really loved, share it in your stories. I will definitely be sure to like it, reshare it, and you could possibly get some merch from it. So stay engaged. Go over there and check out any pictures from any players that have given their episodes already. And there's pictures from some of them as far as what they've done, what they've played, and things like that. So make sure you go over and check those things out. And their social media information is usually in the notes of the podcast, and I also tag them on social media as well, so you can find them there if you want to be able to do that. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, email me, kickitwithkatiepod@gmail.com, or you can shoot a message to me on Instagram. So I've had several people reach out in the last couple of weeks, so I'm trying to get interviews set up with them, but I'm really excited about that. And if you have any questions for any guests, I had somebody email me recently about some coaching advice that they want, and so I'm going to do a special segment on that. Definitely want to address those things. And then as well, the new thing that we have started, or I have started, I guess, on the podcast is the Player of the Week. Aside from me nominating my kids, you guys need to nominate players. So feel free to shoot me a message on Instagram, through Facebook, email me, kickitwithkatiepod@gmail.com, because I want to share your nominations with the rest of the world. And it can be any youth player, if they're a collegiate player, professional player. Again, it doesn't matter to me. Nominate the players that you want to nominate. I will definitely be able to share that with them. Now that that's over, I'm going to get into my crazy summer. So I started to take time off in May. This is May 2023, depending on when you're listening, is when I took a break. And the reason why I took the break is because my son's team, he has 2 teams in his age group that we're involved in, and his team was playing in State Cup, and the other half of his team was also playing in State Cup. They also overlap with tryouts, so I was going to have a busy couple of weeks. I needed to take a break because I couldn't do interviews as far as working, getting the kids through the end of school. Our daughter's birthday was coming up. It was Memorial Weekend. I mean, it was just going to be absolutely crazy. And I know some of you parents can relate. So we're going through State Cup, and the team that my son plays on, he's a keeper, and he's the little guy that I nominated last week as the Player of the Week. His team won their age group, and the other half of their team, I think they made it to the quarterfinals. So they played in their State Cup, and like I said, it overlaps with tryouts as far as the clubs and the age groups in the area. So I am the head coach of a couple, well, at the time I was the head coach of the 2013 age group, and I was coaching both teams that were in the age group with our club, and I was going to be taking over the 2015 team because the coach was taking their team to another club because he didn't see eye to eye with the club, and a lot of other reasons I really don't want to get involved in. But he basically took the team that my twin daughters were on and took them to another club. I had told the club, if he's not going to continue coaching, I would, love to step in if you don't have somebody else. And they didn't at the time, so since my daughters were on the team, I was like, yeah, I'm fine with taking over that team. I was going to be having tryouts for my 2015 age group girls. I was going to have tryouts for my 2013 age group girls. And I had told the club that I only wanted to coach one team in each age group because I was already being really busy and I have a full-time job. Well, part-time, full-time job. I work every day for 4 to 5 hours. Then I coach. And then I'm also a mom, and I started this podcast, and I do all these other things. You know, my kids play soccer. All 5 of them do. They have their own games and things like that. And it was just getting to be a lot. I was gearing up for the 2015 and 2013 tryouts. And because my son's team was competing in State Cup, but their age group also had tryouts during State Cup, because I'm the assistant coach for the 2012 boys team, I had to help run the tryout for them as well, because one of their teams was still competing in State Cup, and they had a semifinal game at the same time that their age group tryout was. So my husband, who's the coach, could not be there, so I had to help run the tryout for the age group. Now, there are other coaches for that age group for other teams. We all ran the tryout and everything. And also, the day before that, I got an unexpected call that the coach that was supposed to be taking over another age group for another coach, he backed out the day of. And it was his job. He had gotten a promotion and he wasn't going to be able to commit the time to the age group. And so I was contacted by our club's director and asked me if I could take over that age group. And I was like, sure, but I'm going to be coaching the 2013s, the 2014s, and the 2015s. So I was going to be coaching those 3 age groups, which to me isn't that bad because that gives the players the opportunity to cross-train, which is something that I really like being able to do, where if a player is exceeding their abilities and they need to play and train up or get extra training, they have the opportunity to do that. And I'm the coach, and so I know that they're being trained consistently and that they're not being taught different things because I'm the coach of the age groups. And then also, if there's players who are kind of struggling and maybe they just need to, you know, they still can cross-train, but they're training with players that are more at their level, and but they still want that extra training. And so they can, you know, cross-train, but again, with players that are at their same level. So I took that on as well. So now I'm the head coach of 3 age groups. I'm coaching the top rosters for those 3 age groups, 2013, 2014, and 2015 girls. And then for 2 of those age groups, we also have a second roster. And so I also help manage and assistant coach them as well. So if their coaches aren't available and I don't have anything going on, I can lump them in with my trainings that I'm already doing for the same age group or whatever. And so it's been really nice. And then also, like, if I have a game with somebody else and I need to practice a team needs to train, then I can have the other coach of that other age group or the same age group train. So it's worked out really well. But anyway, I took on an extra age group of coaching that I was not expecting, but I was happy to do it. So I already knew some of the girls because they had already been cross-training with my 2013 roster that I was already coaching. And so it was kind of an easy thing for me to take over. And it was kind of nice to have a team that my kids weren't involved in, because the 2013s and 15s that I coach, my daughters are on those teams. Okay. Deep breath. Okay. My son's 2012 boys team, they win State Cup in their age group. Congratulations to them. And then also we're going through tryouts at the same time. So I'm helping out with tryouts and I'm getting my teams offers out to players and creating teams and things like that. And that was absolutely crazy. One of the things that I really want parents, especially if you're listening to this, and hopefully you are, if you go to a tryout for a club and a coach offers you a spot, please accept or decline it, depending on what the rules are in your area. Usually it has to be a written request, and then you have to have a written acceptance or if you decline it. And in the last couple years that I have had girls accept their spots and then they ghost. Like, I am not joking. Like, they accept their spots and then I send the parents the registration information, or my manager does, and we're trying to follow up for a couple of weeks, and literally zero reply. And I'm like, you already accepted your spot. We've told you all this information. You were super excited. If your plans changed, you accept the spot and your plans change, I mean, just be honest about it. Don't just ghost the coaches, because we're trying to create rosters based off of who has accepted their spots and then when they start to register, so we have to make sure we have enough players. And if you've accepted your spot, we're counting on you to follow through and register for the team. And if you've accepted it and then your plans change, again, tell the coach so that we're not scrambling to try and find a different player or whatever to fill the spot that you've already accepted. I mean, it's ridiculous. And as a coach, it's very stressful. And as a parent, yes, you might think that the confrontation is looming. I don't know what the word would be. Like, maybe you're afraid of confrontation, which some people are. And they're like, oh, I've already accepted this and I don't want to tell them that I have to back out. And so you just don't say anything. That is super stressful. Just be honest, because that is what coaches are looking for, is they just want somebody to be honest with them and be like, okay, I can't do this anymore. We can't commit. We thought we were going to be able to have time and we don't, whatever it is. Just be honest about that, because that is super stressful, because we're planning numbers and we're trying to figure out where players fit and where they should go. And we had an instance like this year where, we were planning on players who had accepted their spots registering for specific girls rosters. At least this is for me specifically. And it ended up that a couple of people ended up not registering. And so our rosters were skewed, because we could have moved players into, to fill those gaps from one roster to another. And because other people had already registered, we couldn't move them. And so it was kind of a nightmare. I mean, it all worked out in the end, but again, if you're going through the tryout process, just be honest and upfront with the coaches. I would much prefer that. And don't drag them along, because a lot of times they have deadlines that they have to meet. Like, we have specific deadlines, which I don't always love, because I feel like they're way too soon. And I always have people that move here or look for things after the tryout process has already happened, because they were out of town for the summer or whatever it was, and then they come in later, and because the rosters are already filled or whatever, and so it's just so difficult. But anyway, so that is my experience with that. So again, just be honest and upfront, because like last year I had a parent who accepted their spot, and I literally for 2 months was trying to get a hold of this person, because she would have been the last player to complete my roster for one of my teams, and they literally just never said anything back. And I was texting the mom, I was emailing the mom, and I know that her phone number was used for her business, so I know that she had to be getting those messages. And it was just, it was kind of ridiculous that she didn't respond after saying she was going to get registered and all this stuff. And then poof, she just disappeared. And I'm like, if you're moving or there was a change in circumstances, I understand that. Just let us know and we'll stop bothering you. So, I finally had to send an email and a text message saying, since I haven't heard from you, I'm going to assume that you can't do this anymore. And so I'm not going to continue reaching out. So, it was very stressful for me, and I was trying to manage 2 teams last year by myself. I didn't have any assistants at the time, so it was very stressful and difficult for me, because I was trying to focus on the girls and not necessarily focus on numbers or anything like that, and trying to fulfill the state's guidelines for things for registering teams. So it was very stressful for me. And there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that coaches have to go through, and managers, and it could vary depending on your area, things that you have to complete by specific dates. And so it's very difficult for people that don't get registered immediately when there's a deadline to lock down rosters. And so when people don't register, at least for me and in our area, it's very stressful, because if we don't get registered by a specific time, then we can't play in the league in the fall. And so we don't want a team to miss out because one player didn't get registered because we couldn't complete our roster, the minimum number for the roster. And so that's very stressful. So if you're a parent that's going through that and you have a player that gets to try out and things like that, there's a reason why we hound you guys to get registered. It's because we have deadlines that we have to meet in order for the kids to play in the league. And it's different for every region and area. But for mine, it's about a month after tryouts are completed that we have to have the rosters locked down. And so it just gets to be super stressful. Okay, enough about that. I could go on about tryouts and things like that for a very long time. So if you want me to go into more tryout detail and things like that, I can definitely do that in another episode. But I'm going to continue with my summer. Okay, so deep breath. You can tell I could probably go on and on about that for a long time. Okay, so after State Cup and after tryouts were completed, so State Cup for the younger age groups ended, I think, on Memorial Day, around there. And then the older age groups have their tryouts for, I think it's like U13 and above. They have their tryouts later. For us in Utah, it's about the last week in May, early June. And so they were doing those tryouts. And because my husband's 2006 team had won their State Cup, they had qualified to go to Far West Regionals, which was in Boise, Idaho in June. So after State Cup was over, we were training our new teams, getting our teams together after tryouts were done. And then he went to Far West Regionals in Boise, Idaho, the last second to last weekend in June. So June 22nd, 23rd is when he went up there. And they won their group. And then they had quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. So their semifinal game was on June 28th at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. And I was still at home. I've been working. I have my job. I had to getting ready for the end of the month and different things. And so my kids are at home. I'm practicing with my teams. I'm training some of his teams while he's gone, because like I said, I'm the assistant coach for the 2012 boys. So I was doing trainings with them while he was gone. They won their semifinal game. And so after their game was over, me and my daughters drove up to Boise, which is about a 5-hour drive, which I feel like it was more like 6 hours. It took forever to get up there with them. I was so done being in the car with them. My boys opted to stay home. They didn't really want to go just for the day, because the final was at 8:15 on Thursday, June 29th, and they won Far West Regionals. That was super exciting. They were the first Utah boys team to repeat win Far West Regionals. So one of my other husband's teams was the first Utah boys team to win Far West Regionals. And this age group, the 2006 boys, was the first Utah boys team to repeat. So they had won last year at regionals, and they went to nationals last year, and they won regionals again this year. So it was a huge accomplishment for them, and it was such a fun time and super exciting. And so we celebrated, did all the fun things. We went to lunch, and then we left and drove home. So I was up in Boise for not very long, but it was a super exciting time to be able to celebrate that with them. After that, they were home for 2 days, 3 days. They weren't home for very long. And then on July, I don't know if it was on Independence Day or if they left on July 5th, but the next weekend, July 6th, was E64 national finals. So the older age groups, which the 2006 boys that my husband coaches was in that age group that was going to be playing that first weekend. And then after that, they overlapped with the younger age groups. So my 2010 son was going to be playing in that as well. So Justice and Xander packed up their rental car and they drove to Oceanside. That's where it was. It was in Oceanside. So they drove to E64 Nationals in Oceanside on, I don't know if it was July 4th or 5th, but they drove and left, and they went there, and I was coaching in a soccer tournament while they were gone. So our club and another club host a tournament together called the United Champions Cup. And so I was coaching my 2013 and 2014 teams in the tournament. My son Colin was also playing in the tournament, the 2012s, and another dad coached them because I was going to be coaching my girls. And so he offered to coach the team. His family was going to be, well, they did at this point, they've moved now, but this was his son's last tournament with the team, and they were moving back east, and their dad had a job offer back there, and so this was his last tournament with the team. So they did the United Champions Cup together, and my son's team won that, so that was awesome. My girls, unfortunately, neither of those age groups won the tournament, but it was fun to be able to get to coach the new teams that I was coaching. And like the 2013 girls, they were moving from 7v7 to 9v9, so that was a big transition for them, adding new players after losing some players. So it was a transition. And then for me, slotting into that 2014s, this was the first time that I was coaching that team. That was fun to be able to see that and do that. The tournament ended on Saturday, July 8th, and as soon as the tournament was over for my son's team, we were waiting to do awards. The awards weren't moving as fast as we had hoped, and so we had to book it to the airport. Luckily, the tournament was being held at a complex right by our local airport, so we were able to just drive right out there and go. But we basically, we'd been out there all day, and we turned around and left, and we were on a flight, me and 4 of my kids, to California, and we were heading up to go do the E64 games for my younger son's team. And the 2006 boys, were, I think at that point they were in the semifinals, because I was there for the semifinals and the finals, and their semifinal game was hard. It was absolutely hard, and they won that semifinal game. My husband and one of the coaches had talked to the other team's coach and found out that they had some players that were going to be playing internationally. They were going to be playing collegiate. I mean, they were a stacked roster. And so we were very lucky to win that semifinal, and then we won the final. So the 2006 boys, they had their second championship of the summer, and they won the E64 Nationals, which it was the inaugural season for the E64 Nationals because it was a new league and a new tournament and championships kind of thing going on. And so that was interesting to navigate that process. And we ended up staying a couple extra days and hitting up Disneyland for 2 days. So that was fun for our family to be able to do that. Okay, so we've done Far West Regionals. We did E64. And then the next week was US Youth National Championships in Orlando, Florida. We got home from California from our drive on the evening of July 15th. So they were gone for about 10 days to California. I was gone for a week. And early morning, July 16th, Justice flew out to Orlando, Florida to do E64, US Youth National Championships in Florida for his 2006 boys team who had won Far West Regionals. So they were going back there to compete in that, which last year when they went, they didn't even make it out of their group. This year we were hoping to rebound and make it farther in the competition, and they ended up going to the finals. And on the day of the semifinal, we were watching, no, I don't think we were watching the game. I'm trying to remember. Some of the games were live streamed and some of them were not. We had some parents that were there, luckily, that were on the sidelines that were streaming them like through Instagram or Facebook. And so we could watch some of the games through there if they weren't being live streamed at the Worldwide Sports Complex, the Disney Worldwide Sports Complex. And anyway, so they had their semifinal on Saturday, July 22nd, and they beat New York City Premier. During the game, because we had gone up by a few goals, one of the parents contacted me who was still here. Well, she was actually in Florida but her husband was still here in Utah, and there were a couple of family members that were going to fly out for the final on Sunday, and they wanted to make a surprise for Justice, their coach, and because they've had an amazing summer, and the team has just done absolutely amazing in that last year, and they wanted to surprise Justice and have me fly out for the final. So they booked me a flight, and I flew out at like 11:30 on Saturday night to Orlando, Florida. And I'm going to be honest about something because I don't know if other people can relate, but I used to be a transcriptionist for auto accident claims, and so I would transcribe calls between adjusters and people so that they could use those documents for whatever they needed them for. And because of that, I developed severe travel anxiety. And as a person who travels consistently for sports, whether it's driving or flying, mostly driving, but occasionally flying, I developed this severe anxiety of traveling. So whenever I drive, I have to be occupying my time, whether I'm listening to an audiobook, a podcast, or something. But I'm sitting in a car and I get absolutely terrified. I get on an airplane, and even though I can try and think rationally to calm myself down, I will get absolutely mortified while I'm on an airplane now, which I used to never do that. I traveled a ton as a kid, and we would drive and fly to all different places, and I never had any problems with that. Even before I had kids, early on with my kids when we would travel, I never had that. But after I had that job, it made it so bad for me to travel places, and I didn't really know that because we hadn't traveled a ton, and it got to be really bad, and I've been trying to work on it the last few years, and it has gotten better. But especially when I travel alone, it gets very scary for me sometimes, and so I get really anxious, obviously, and nervous, and I really just wish I could fall asleep and just stay asleep, especially because the flight from Utah to Florida is about a 5-hour flight, and I would love to just be able to sleep, especially because I was flying in the middle of the night and then coming back the next day, basically, and so I was going to be really tired. So I flew to Florida, and I did okay. I didn't cry or anything, but I did get really nervous. I don't think I really slept on the flight, maybe an hour, maybe. Turns out the person that was sitting next to me was a part of the group of people that was going to watch this team play in the final. So that was kind of funny. He was the older brother of one of the defenders on the team, and so him and his wife were flying out for that, and the other dad that we were meeting. Anyway, we took a Uber over to the hotel, and I was able to surprise Justice that I was there. So that was kind of fun. And then we got to the finals. We went to the game, and they played the Miami Breakers, which they played the Miami Breakers last year at Nationals, and they lost hard to this team. So it was definitely going to be an uphill battle for them, but the team had definitely grown in the last year, so that was really exciting to see. And I do have a short video clip that I have shared of my basically 24 hours going to and from Florida. It has some video clips of the final, but it was crazy. So we ended up going down 1-0 in the first half, and then there was a storm delay, because there was a huge storm coming through. There was tons of lightning. My lightning map just absolutely lit up, and there was lightning everywhere, so we had to go inside and wait, and I think that delay cost us about, 30 minutes, probably an hour. I would say maybe an hour. And then we got back out on the field, and coach adjusted some formational stuff, and we killed it the rest of the game. We ended up tying it up before halftime, 1-1. So we had about 5-7 minutes left in the half before the lightning delay, and they came back and we scored a goal right off the bat and tied it up. And then one of the players got an absolute he just dribbled basically the whole team. Not the whole team, but you guys got to go and watch this on my Instagram story or reel that I have, but it was absolutely crazy. They came back and our boys won 2-1, and it was awesome. And this year at US Youth Nationals, there were, I think, 5 Utah teams that won nationals. I'm trying to remember specifically, but we had the most state teams to win nationals this year in 2023, and that was absolutely awesome. And congratulations to all of the teams that also won from Utah or from other states. The game before the 06 boys, there was, I think it was a North Dakota team. There was a team from a state who had never made it to nationals, I don't believe, and they never made it to a final, and they ended up winning. It was a girls team, and it was awesome. And just to see the people on the sidelines and how excited they were, it was awesome. So congratulations to them. And one of the girls' finals was actually 2 Utah teams, so we knew that there was going to be a Utah team in that final, or winning the championship, because 2 teams from our state were in that final. So that was awesome as well. But it was great overall, a great experience, and it was awesome. So I'm hoping to be able to get some of the boys and parents from this 2016 to get their experiences that they had, and what they were feeling at the time and things like that, because I think that would be great. So that was July 16th through 23rd is when we were in Orlando. Well, I was there for 24 hours, less than 24 hours. But that's when that team had that nationals. And then the next weekend I was coaching girls teams up in a tournament in Park City here in Utah. So we went straight from that. And then the next week, my 2012 son, his team was going to Surf Cup in San Diego. So we were back in San Diego, and I'm trying to think if I went to that or not. I stayed home. That's right, I did. I stayed home. So my 2 sons' teams were playing. I was going to go, but I just felt like, since I had already missed some other stuff, that I just needed to stay home. And so I did. I stayed home. My brother also was getting married that week, and so I kind of wanted to help get stuff prepared for that. And my brother got married, and then the next week, just training. School was starting. Some of my kids had birthdays, and then the season started, and then we were right into the fall season. So it was an absolutely crazy summer for me, and it was a lot, especially having to train so many teams, take care of so many teams, organize the teams, get them registered for tournaments and things like that. I mean, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy in what we were doing and accomplishing for the summer, and being able to be there to support the teams that we had in different tournaments and things, and getting to know the new players that I started coaching. It was absolutely insane, and our fall season has been going great. My 2015 girls, we didn't play in any tournaments over the summer just because of me being gone and the number side of things for me as far as rosters. And so their very first game for their fall as a team, because it was a brand new team, was in their fall season. So they had been training for several months, and they finally got to have their first game. And so that was fun to be able to see them, because they started the 7-a-side, the 7v7 format for them. They went from 4v4 to 7v7. So that was fun to see them starting to learn how to do that this summer and starting off in their fall season. But it has just been absolutely crazy and chaotic. And I did get some interviews done during that time, and I was hoping to get them released, but I didn't want to release them and just have it be, because I was so busy and I was gone so much and working and all these different things, I couldn't commit the time to the podcast that I wanted to. And so now that chaos has simmered down, I'm back at it, and I'm really excited to see what everybody else is up to. So what was your summer like? tell me about it. Email me. Tell me how crazy your summer was. If you had a crazy summer, if you had an amazing tournament win that you want to highlight, anything like that, reach out to me, comment on Instagram, anything like that. I would love to hear about it. But I mean, this is really it for today, but I just wanted to give you guys kind of a sample of literally every week of the summer we had a tournament or something going on, traveling, and it was absolutely crazy how busy it was, and it made the summer just fly right by. So it was absolutely chaos, but it was fun and exciting to be able to see the things that were going on and what was happening. And that was super fun to be able to experience those championships with those teams and see how excited they were and things. And I'm really excited to see where they go. But if you guys have any questions or comments about the episode today, please reach out to me on Instagram, or you can email me. Make sure to like this, subscribe to the podcast, share it. Again, guys, I need your nominations for Player of the Week. I've had no nominations yet. I'm not going to lie. I haven't had anybody nominate any players. So please, you guys, share your nominations. I have people that I would totally nominate, but I want to make sure that it's okay for their parents to be able to have them nominated. So I haven't nominated anybody, but if you guys want to nominate somebody, please do. And email me at kickitwithkatiepod@gmail.com. If you want to be an interview for the podcast, please reach out. And thanks for kicking it with me. Have a great day. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at kickitwithkatiepodcast _between all the words. You can reach out to me with questions at kickitwithkatiepod@gmail.com. I also have a feature with SpeakPipe where you can leave me your own voicemail message if you want to be featured on the podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.